Behind the pages of the Bible, hidden in plain sight, lie mysteries so profound, so ancient, they have remained locked away for centuries, figures whose existence defies logic, whose powers and purposes remain shrouded in darkness. These beings, angels, monsters, and kings, stand on the edge of history, whispering secrets to those daring enough to listen. What if everything we thought we knew about Scripture is just the surface? What if the truth is darker, more powerful, and far beyond our understanding? We will uncover the forgotten, the enigmatic, and the forbidden. We will step into a world where the divine and the terrifying collide, where celestial beings and ancient creatures still influence the course of human history. Prepare yourself for a journey through the hidden corridors of time, where every revelation will challenge your understanding of the sacred and the profane. We'll uncover the mystery of the 24 elders whose very presence in the heavens hints at a cosmic battle. We'll face the terror of Leviathan, the chaos that stalks the deep, and we'll confront the tragic tale of Lucifer, the angel who fell from grace and became the embodiment of evil itself. This isn't just another exploration of biblical history. This is a journey into the heart of divine secrets that have been hidden in the shadows for millennia. The question is, are you ready to look deeper? Are you ready to step into the darkness where truth waits to be uncovered? Let us begin and discover the hidden forces that still shape our world today. In the vast, uncharted depths of the book of Revelation, there lies a scene so powerful, so profound, it's often overlooked. 24 elders robed in white, crowned in gold, seated in a circle around God's throne. A scene of majestic purity, unblemished by time or sin. But as awe-inspiring as this image is, one question remains. Who are these figures? What do they represent, and why are they so important in the divine drama of history? Are they the redeemed, those who have been saved by grace, their lives a testimony to God's mercy? Or are they angelic beings, their existence beyond our understanding, their purpose, a mystery we cannot fully comprehend for centuries? Scholars have debated their true identity. Some say they represent the 12 tribes of Israel. Others argue they are the 12 apostles, and still others claim they symbolize the church itself, the faithful redeemed through Christ. Yet as the debate rages on, one thing is clear: these elders are not just figures to be admired from a distance. Their role is far deeper, more complex. They represent victory, they represent reward, and above all, they represent the acknowledgement of God's sovereignty. They are seated in the presence of the Almighty, their crowns glimmering with the radiance of divine approval. But could there be more to them than we realize? Are they simply a symbol of God's eternal triumph? Or are they in fact reflections of ourselves? Could these elders, in their purity and their exalted positions, mirror the very lives we live today? What if their eternal reward is not just a symbol of what has passed, but a beckoning call to what is yet to come? Could these elders be holding a mirror up to our own faith, reminding us of the journey we must take, the struggle we must endure, and the reward that awaits the faithful? Their crowns, glittering with gold, are not just ornamental. They are a sign, a message, a challenge to remain steadfast, to live righteously, even in the face of adversity. For each of these elders sits not in idle pleasure, but in eternal vigilance, acknowledging the holiness of the Creator. Could we too be called to that same vigilance, to that same purity, to that same recognition of God's supremacy? These elders are not mere symbols of a distant time or place. They represent a divine order that extends beyond the pages of the Bible and reaches into our very lives. In their eternal worship, they call us to humility. They remind us that in our human frailty, we too are part of this divine plan, a plan that reaches beyond the confines of time and space. And yet, even as we stand in awe of their role in the heavenly courts, we cannot ignore the unsettling thought that lingers in our hearts. Is the crown that awaits these elders the same crown that is promised to us? What does it mean to be victorious in God's eyes? What trials must we endure, and what sacrifices must we make to join these elders in their eternal reward? Have you ever felt that divine pull in your life? A feeling that something greater is calling you, urging you to remain steadfast even when the world around you crumbles? If so, share your thoughts in the comments below. Let's explore together as a community what it means to live a life worthy of that eternal crown. For in the shadows of these elders lies a truth that we cannot ignore, a truth that calls us to a higher purpose, a higher calling than we have ever known. And as we move deeper into the mysteries of the Bible, we'll discover that the 24 elders are not just witnesses to history. They are in fact part of a divine narrative that is still unfolding, and it might just involve you. So what is the role of the 24 elders in this divine story, and what does their presence reveal about the very nature of faith itself? Join us as we move forward and uncover the next mystery, the Ophanim, the wheels of God, creatures that see all and move without turning. In the prophetic visions of the prophet Ezekiel, there emerges a creature so enigmatic, so unlike anything we've known, that its very existence challenges our understanding of the divine. Ezekiel describes it as the Ophanim, wheels, but not just any wheels. These wheels are covered in eyes able to move in any direction without ever turning. What could such an image possibly mean? These are not just physical beings, but divine symbols, emblems of God's omnipresence, His all-knowing sight, and His boundless power. They move, see, and act in perfect harmony without a moment's hesitation. Imagine for a moment a universe so vast, so intricately woven together that every event, every movement, every action, and every thought is in perfect alignment with the divine will. This is the cosmic machinery of God's plan, a plan that stretches beyond our comprehension. The Ophanim are not mere observers of this grand design. They are its living mechanism, a divine clockwork constantly turning, never faltering, moving in ways that defy our understanding. But what is the true significance of these wheels in the grand scheme of divine order? Are they simply a testament to God's power, or do they hold a deeper meaning, a living metaphor for God's judgment and providence? These wheels are not passive. They are an active force in God's sovereign rule. Each eye, each rotation, each movement speaks of a God who is ever present, ever watching, and ever working in the lives of His creation. A wheel that moves in every direction at once, never needing to turn, never needing to shift. It doesn't need to decide which way to go, for it is always in perfect alignment with the Creator. The Ophanim are not bound by time or space, just as God is not bound by the constraints of our world. What they symbolize is the perfection of divine judgment, the clarity with which God sees all things. Nothing escapes His gaze. Every decision, every event is known to Him before it happens. Every action is part of a greater divinely orchestrated plan. The Ophanim do not hesitate. They move with the unflinching certainty of divine will. When they act, it is not random. It is not chaotic. It is the precise unfolding of God's providence, orchestrating every detail of our universe. From the rise of nations to the fall of kings, from the birth of a child to the last breath of the faithful, the Ophanim are the living representation of God's perfect and unshakable plan. And in this, they teach us a profound truth. Nothing is outside of God's control, not the largest galaxy nor the smallest moment of your life. In your life, how often do we feel that things are out of our control, that the world spins in directions we cannot follow, that chaos reigns over order? The Ophanim remind us that even in moments of confusion, even when we cannot see the path, God's plan is unfolding perfectly, just as these wheels move in every direction, yet without error, without confusion. Could this be the reminder we need in our own lives to trust in His providence, to surrender to the cosmic order that only He can truly understand? The Ophanim are not just symbols of God's power, they are living, breathing metaphors for His omniscience and omnipresence. They reflect His ability to act without hesitation, to see every aspect of creation, to move with purpose and precision. What does it mean for us that God is always moving, always seeing, always working on our behalf, even when we cannot understand the full picture? Could it be that the Ophanim are telling us something more about the world we live in? A world that appears chaotic, unpredictable, and outside our control. What if behind the scenes God is moving, orchestrating, and guiding our lives with the same divine certainty and precision as these wheels? What would it mean to surrender ourselves to that truth, to align our lives with the perfect will of the Creator? Reflect on the power of divine providence in your own life. In those moments when things seem beyond your understanding, when the future feels uncertain, how can you trust in the movement of God's plan? How do you see God's hand working in your life today? Leave your thoughts in the comments and let's walk this path together, seeking the divine order that moves all things forward. As we continue, we will move from the divine wheels that move with purpose to a creature of raw power and might, the behemoth. A creature so vast, so unyielding, it demands awe and reverence. But even in the face of such an unstoppable force, there is a deeper lesson to be learned, one that brings us face to face with the nature of God's sovereignty over all creation. In the book of Job, one creature towers above all others, Behemoth, described as a mighty being, a creature whose power is unparalleled. It evokes images of strength that seem almost impossible to fathom. Some scholars suggest it might have been a hippopotamus, others an elephant, or perhaps something even more fearsome, long lost to time. But regardless of its form, Behemoth is a creature whose very existence challenges our understanding of nature and its place in God's creation. A beast so formidable, so awe-inspiring, that even the strongest among us would tremble at its might. But why would God choose such a beast to make a profound theological point? At first glance, Behemoth seems to be nothing more than a symbol of raw power, a reminder of the uncontrollable forces of nature. But there is something deeper, something hidden beneath its immense form. Behemoth is not just a beast, it is a living representation of the chaos and trials that we face in our lives every day. It is the challenges we cannot control, the battles we cannot fight, the storms that rage around us when we feel powerless. Behemoth stands as a terrifying reminder of the uncontrollable forces of life. Think about the storms in your own life, those moments of trial that feel as overwhelming as a beast charging toward you. Whether it's loss, grief, fear, or doubt, Behemoth is a symbol of those moments when it feels as though the world is too much to bear. Yet within its might, there is a profound truth. In the face of such unyielding power, we are reminded of God's sovereignty over all creation. The power of Behemoth, however untamable, is still under the authority of the Creator. When God speaks of Behemoth in Job, He does not offer a solution to tame it. He doesn't provide a method for controlling this beast. Instead, He points to the truth that Behemoth, like everything in creation, exists under His rule. Behemoth's strength, its wildness, its untamed nature, all exist within the boundaries set by the Creator. And so we too must face our own behemoths, our own untamed trials, and recognize that even when we cannot control them, God's wisdom and power are still sovereign over them. Why does this matter? Because in the chaos of life, we are not left alone. Just as Behemoth's power does not go unchecked, neither do our struggles. When the beast of life seems insurmountable, when it feels as though everything is spiraling out of control, we must remember that God sees it all. His wisdom is infinite, His control is unwavering, and even in the chaos, He holds all things together. Think of the times in your life when you faced challenges that seemed beyond your strength. The times when the battle was too fierce, the storm too violent. Perhaps you felt as if you were staring down a behemoth, powerless to stop it. But in those moments, the very thing that makes Behemoth so fearsome also reveals the depth of God's authority. Behemoth, like every trial we face, is a part of God's plan, a plan that we may not always understand, but one that works toward a purpose far greater than we can see. In the face of such overwhelming power, we are called to trust not in our own strength, but in God's. For just as Behemoth is subject to God's will, so too are the trials in our lives. And it is through trusting in God's sovereignty, even when we cannot control the beast, that we find the strength to endure. Behemoth's lesson is not one of conquest, it is one of surrender. When we face the trials of life, we are reminded to surrender control. We are reminded that in our own powerlessness, God's strength is made perfect. In our weakness, His might is revealed. Behemoth, with all its ferocity, is a symbol of life's untamable forces, but it is also a reminder that nothing is beyond God's control. In the end, we are not called to tame the beast, but to trust in the one who holds the reins of all creation. As you reflect on the behemoths in your own life, think about the areas where you feel overwhelmed. Where are you struggling to tame the chaos? Leave your thoughts in the comments, and let's share in this journey of surrender and trust together. But Behemoth is not the only beast in the Bible. There is another force equally terrifying, yet even more elusive, the Leviathan. A creature that represents not just chaos, but the primordial forces of evil. In the face of such a force, we are forced to ask, what does it mean to confront true evil, and how can we trust in God's victory over it? Our journey continues as we face the Leviathan and its untamable darkness. From the depths of the sea rises a creature so terrifying, so ancient that its mere mention sends a shiver down the spine. Leviathan, a monstrous beast whose very existence seems to defy the order of creation. In the pages of Scripture, Leviathan is more than a mere creature. It is a force and embodiment of chaos, destruction, and the dark, untamable powers that threaten to unravel the very fabric of God's world. Often portrayed as a symbol of evil itself, Leviathan stands as the very antithesis of divine control. But in its existence, one crucial question emerges: can evil truly be defeated? Can the primal chaos that Leviathan represents ever be overcome? Leviathan is not just a monster of ancient myth. It is a metaphor for the forces of darkness that haunt our world, forces that seem unshakable, forces that we cannot always see but feel in the very air we breathe. It is the embodiment of every shadow in the human soul, every moment of evil that rises and threatens to swallow the light. From the violence in the world to the personal battles we fight within, Leviathan is present, its vast body coiling in the depths of our fears, whispering lies, sowing discord. But Leviathan is not invincible. It stands as a testimony to the eternal struggle between good and evil. In its wake, we see the battle that has raged since the dawn of time, the conflict between the light of divine truth and the darkness that seeks to destroy it. And though Leviathan looms large, though it seems insurmountable, its ultimate defeat is not only a possibility, it is an inevitability. For God's triumph over the forces of evil is written into the very fabric of creation. And this battle, as we will see, is one that we all have a part to play in. Leviathan's power is undeniable, but it is not without purpose. In many ways, the very presence of this monstrous force challenges us to examine the deepest parts of our souls. It forces us to confront our own fears, our own doubts, our own capacity for evil. The battle with Leviathan is not just a cosmic event, it is a personal one. It is the struggle between our higher selves and the darker impulses that threaten to pull us down. Every day we are faced with the challenge: will we stand in the light, or will we succumb to the chaos that Leviathan represents? But God's victory over Leviathan is a victory not just in the grand cosmic battle, but in each of our hearts. For as Scripture reveals, it is not by our own strength that we overcome, but by the power of the one who has already defeated the chaos. Just as God spoke to Job of his power over Leviathan, he reminds us that there is no force, no darkness, no evil that can stand against his will. Leviathan may rise, but God's hand is greater still. Leviathan is in the end a symbol of the evil that challenges God's good creation, but it is also a symbol of the hope we have in God's ultimate triumph. In the end, Leviathan will be bound, the chaos will be calmed, the darkness will be pushed back, for God's light will always prevail. And in that victory, we are not merely passive spectators. We are participants in God's plan to redeem the world. Where do you see the struggle between good and evil in your life? Perhaps you've faced moments where the darkness seemed overwhelming, where the chaos of the world seemed too great to bear. How can you find hope in the face of Leviathan? Share your thoughts below, and let's continue exploring together the power of divine victory. As we stand at the edge of this battle, we are reminded that our part in the cosmic drama is not to face Leviathan alone, but to trust in the one who holds the power to defeat it. And as we look deeper into the Scriptures, we find that God has already prepared a way for us to overcome the evil in this world and in our hearts. The battle with Leviathan may seem endless, but the ultimate victory belongs to God. And soon we will turn our attention to a being who stands as a guardian of divine holiness, the cherubim. They too have a part to play in God's eternal plan. They remind us of the sanctity of God's presence and the fierce protection He provides. But just how far will God's protection go in the fight against evil? Among the most mysterious and awe-inspiring beings in Scripture are the cherubim. Often depicted in connection with the Ark of the Covenant and the Garden of Eden, these celestial guardians are not mere figments of ancient myth. No, they are real, and their purpose transcends mere protection. They are the divine sentinels tasked with guarding sacred spaces, preserving the holiness of God's presence. But their role is more profound than we often realize. The cherubim are not just figures of ancient history, they are living symbols of the omnipresence and vigilance of the Creator, forever standing watch over what is most holy, unceasing in their worship, unyielding in their reverence. The image of the cherubim is nothing short of overwhelming. They are described as having multiple faces, wings, and the ability to move in ways that defy human understanding. They represent God's unfathomable holiness, His eternal, unchanging nature. The cherubim are not limited by time or space. Their existence is a reminder that God's presence is everywhere, watching, protecting, and sanctifying all things. In their constant vigilance, they remind us that the divine is never distant. It is always near, always watching, always present. Could it be that the cherubim's presence in Scripture serves as a profound reminder to us? A reminder of God's unyielding presence in our lives. Even in the darkest of times, they are not passive observers. They are active guardians of the sacred, unceasingly pointing us back to the holiness of God. When we feel distant, when the world around us seems chaotic, the cherubim are there standing watch as symbols of the constant and unshakable presence of the Creator. But what does it mean to approach God with such reverence? What does it mean to stand before the divine with awe and humility? In the Old Testament, when the cherubim guarded the entrance to the Garden of Eden, they did not simply protect a physical space, they protected the very relationship between humanity and God. They were the boundary, the reminder that God's holiness could not be taken lightly. This divine boundary was a call to remember our place before the Almighty. The cherubim's presence is not just a warning, but a profound invitation, a call to recognize the sacred in our daily lives. They stand as a reminder that when we approach God, we do so not with casualness, but with reverence and humility. God is not a distant force. He is an ever-present reality whose holiness transcends all understanding. And just as the cherubim constantly worship before Him, we too are called to live lives of reverence and worship, acknowledging the sacredness of our existence in His presence. Perhaps like the cherubim, we are called to guard the sacred spaces of our own hearts. In our busy, often chaotic world, it can be easy to forget the holiness of God. Yet the cherubim remind us that God's presence is not a fleeting moment. It is constant, unbroken, and worthy of our utmost reverence. When we open ourselves to His presence, we invite the divine into our lives, allowing His holiness to sanctify every moment, every thought, every action. Consider the cherubim's role in guarding the Ark of the Covenant. They were not mere statues, they were living symbols of the purity and majesty of God's presence. Their wings spread out over the mercy seat where God's presence would dwell, and in that sacred space God revealed His glory, His mercy, and His justice. The cherubim were not just protecting an object, they were protecting the very place where heaven touched earth. Where do we find the sacred in our own lives? How do we guard the holiness of God in our hearts, in our thoughts, in our actions? As we reflect on the cherubim and their unceasing worship, let us consider how we too might live lives that honor the holiness of God. Share your thoughts below, and let's continue this journey of reverence and awe together. Their role as guardians of divine holiness is a reminder that the sacred is not just something of the past, it is something we must guard today. The cherubim remind us that there is a deeper level of existence, a level that transcends the physical and touches the eternal. And as we continue this journey, we will encounter another being, one whose fall from grace forever altered the course of history, the tragic tale of Lucifer. But in that story, we will see more than just a fall. We will see the beginning of a cosmic battle, one that still echoes today. Once Lucifer was the most exalted of all God's creations, a high-ranking angel in the heavenly courts, radiant with beauty and power. His name itself, meaning light-bringer, once shone brighter than any star. He was created in perfection, designed to reflect God's glory. But in a tragic turn, Lucifer's fall from grace would become one of the most profound and misunderstood events in the Bible. His pride led him to rebel against the very Creator who had made him, and in doing so, he became the embodiment of evil itself. But what can we learn from Lucifer's tragic tale? What does it reveal about the nature of pride, rebellion, and the eternal struggle between good and evil? Lucifer's pride was not born overnight. It grew silently in the heart of one who had everything, beauty, power, and favor before God. It was in the fullness of his perfection that he began to believe in his own self-sufficiency. He became convinced that he deserved more, that he could rise higher than even the throne of God. In his heart, he asked the unthinkable, "Why should God alone sit on the throne? Why should I not ascend and become like the Most High?" And so in that moment of rebellion, Lucifer's fall began, not in the physical realm, but in the spiritual. A being of light now destined to become the prince of darkness. Lucifer's fall sets the stage for the ultimate cosmic battle, the battle between light and darkness, good and evil, creation and destruction. It is a battle that continues to unfold in the heavens and on earth, every day, in every choice we make. Lucifer's pride led him to war against God's authority, but what it really symbolizes is the rebellion within us all. For in Lucifer we see the greatest danger that humanity faces, the insidious nature of pride. It is a pride that leads us to believe that we are our own gods, that we can stand independent of God's will, that we can shape the world to our desires. And in that pride, we risk the same fall. But Lucifer's fall is not just a warning, it is a profound lesson in the consequences of pride. His tragic rebellion demonstrates the depths to which a created being can fall when they reject their Creator. It is a lesson that speaks not only to angels, but to us all. The act of defiance against God's sovereign authority, whether in the heavens or in the hearts of men, leads to nothing but ruin. But there is more to the story. For in Lucifer's fall there is a glimmer of hope, a hope that we can only understand in the light of God's infinite mercy. Even in Lucifer's rebellion, God's mercy is revealed. For Lucifer's pride and rebellion did not catch God by surprise. And though Lucifer's downfall would forever change the course of history, God's plan for redemption was already set in motion. The fall of Lucifer shows us the depths of God's mercy, the mercy that would one day send his Son to defeat the very evil that Lucifer had become. Through the chaos of Lucifer's rebellion, God's ultimate triumph would be made clear. What Lucifer intended for evil, God would use for good. For in the end, the story of Lucifer's fall is not just about the consequences of pride, but about God's unwavering determination to bring light into the deepest darkness. As we reflect on Lucifer's fall, we are left with a question that echoes through the ages. How does pride shape our own lives? How often do we, like Lucifer, place ourselves on a throne that only God deserves? How many times do we elevate our own desires, our own ambitions above the will of the Creator? Lucifer's fall serves as a mirror to our own hearts, showing us the danger of pride, but also the way in which it blinds us to the beauty of humility. Think about the role of humility in your own life. How do you see pride manifesting within you? What are the moments when you have sought to control your own destiny, independent of God? Take a moment to reflect and leave your thoughts in the comments below. Together, let us explore the power of humility and the victory of surrender to God's will. Lucifer's fall may have brought darkness into the world, but it also set the stage for the ultimate battle, one that would be fought and won through the ultimate sacrifice. But there is another figure in Scripture who, like Lucifer, challenges the very foundation of our faith. He is the one who came to bring peace, yet his story is filled with intrigue and mystery. The enigmatic Melchizedek, a king and priest who prefigures Christ himself. But what is the deeper meaning of his appearance, and how does he reveal the nature of Christ's eternal priesthood? Amid the ancient sands of Canaan, there stands a figure who defies time itself. Melchizedek, the king of Salem, a mysterious priest whose identity and purpose continue to elude the grasp of human understanding. No genealogy is given for him, no record of birth or death. He appears in Scripture like a fleeting shadow, yet his impact resonates throughout the ages. Melchizedek is a riddle, a divine enigma, one who stands not only as a king, but as a symbol of something far greater than himself. A figure whose role transcends the Old Covenant, whose meaning is revealed only through the lens of the New Covenant. But what does his story truly mean? Melchizedek's brief appearance in Genesis 14 marks a moment that would echo through the centuries. After Abraham's victorious return from battle, he encounters this priest-king who offers him bread and wine. A simple act, yet one with profound theological significance. For in that moment, Melchizedek offers not just sustenance, but a blessing. "Blessed be Abram by God, Most High, Creator of heaven and earth," he declares, "and praise be to God, Most High, who delivered your enemies into your hand." The priest-king does not just bless Abraham, he acknowledges the sovereign power of God, and by doing so, he foreshadows a greater truth. Melchizedek is not merely a figure of the past. He is a timeless symbol. His offering of bread and wine is more than a gesture, it is a prophecy. In the bread and wine we see a foreshadowing of the Eucharist, the body and blood of Christ offered for the redemption of humanity. This mysterious act of communion between Melchizedek and Abraham is a precursor to the ultimate act of sacrifice on the cross, where Christ would offer himself as the true bread of life and the wine of salvation. But who exactly is Melchizedek? His name, which means King of Righteousness, and his title King of Salem, which many scholars believe to be an ancient Jerusalem, reveals something more. He is a king of peace, a ruler who embodies the dual roles of king and priest, a combination that was unheard of in the Israelite tradition. His priesthood was not derived from lineage or inheritance, but from divine appointment. And in this, Melchizedek is set apart, a figure whose role in history points forward to the eternal priesthood of Christ. Melchizedek is a figure without beginning or end, much like the Christ who would one day fulfill the true meaning of his priesthood. The writer of Hebrews in the New Testament highlights this connection, explaining that Christ is a priest forever in the order of Melchizedek. In other words, Melchizedek's priesthood was not temporary or confined to an earthly dynasty. It was a divine archetype of the eternal priesthood that would find its fulfillment in Jesus Christ, whose offering on the cross would transcend time, covering all of humanity's sin in a single perfect sacrifice. Melchizedek's appearance in Genesis the 14th of May be brief, but its significance is eternal. His blessing of Abraham is a direct link between the ancient promises of God and the new covenant established through Christ. He is the bridge between the two, a divine link that ties together the story of Israel and the story of Christ. In his actions, he reveals the eternal truth that God is not confined to any one moment in time. His purposes stretch far beyond what we can see. Melchizedek represents a priesthood that transcends the Levitical order, a priesthood based not on the law or the flesh, but on the eternal will of God. It is a priesthood of peace and righteousness, one that offers not just atonement, but reconciliation between humanity and the divine. And in this, Melchizedek points directly to Christ, who came not only to fulfill the law, but to bring a new and everlasting covenant, a covenant sealed in his own body and blood, offered as the true bread of life and the true cup of salvation. Melchizedek's quiet presence in Scripture calls us to recognize that God's plans for redemption are far grander than we can imagine. His priesthood, like Christ's, invites us into a deeper relationship with God, one that is based not on what we can do, but on what God has done. And in the quiet moments when we seek his presence, we are invited to participate in the eternal offering of peace and reconciliation. As we reflect on Melchizedek's role, consider the eternal nature of Christ's priesthood. How does it shape your understanding of God's work in your life? How can we live in the light of this eternal priesthood, offering our own lives as living sacrifices to God? Share your reflections in the comments below, and let's continue to explore the mysteries of Scripture together. Through Melchizedek, we see a glimpse of the eternal plan of God, a plan that would find its ultimate expression in the person of Jesus Christ. And as we close this part, remember that the story of Melchizedek is not merely one of ancient history. It is the story of God's unchanging faithfulness, a story that continues to unfold in our lives today. But what does this mean for us? What role do we play in God's eternal plan? Join us in the next chapter as we uncover the deeper implications of divine sovereignty in our lives.